The bar on the edge of nowhere. The space station loomed like a forgotten relic in the void, its metallic hull battered by years of neglect. Inside, the dimly lit bar was a haven for drifters, mercenaries, and those who preferred to stay off the grid. Logan sat in a corner, his hood pulled low, nursing a drink that tasted more like engine coolant than whiskey. His eyes scanned the room, always alert, always cautious. He had learned the hard way that trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. Across the room, a figure caught his attention. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen, tall, with skin that shimmered like starlight and eyes that glowed with an otherworldly intensity. Her attire was strange, a blend of flowing fabrics and metallic accents that seemed to shift and change as she moved. She was beautiful, yes, but there was something else about her, something dangerous. Aaliyah's proposition. The alien woman approached Logan's table, her movements graceful and deliberate. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, her voice soft but commanding. Logan hesitated, then nodded. She slid into the seat across from him, her gaze never leaving his. "I'm Aaliyah," she said, extending a hand. Logan shook it, noting the coolness of her touch. "Logan," he replied curtly. Aaliyah leaned in, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I need your help. OmniCorp is conducting experiments on this station, experiments that could destroy entire civilizations. I'm here to stop them, but I can't do it alone." Logan's eyes narrowed. "Why me?" "Because you're not like the others," she said. "You've got a conscience. And you've got nothing to lose." A sudden breach. Before Logan could respond, the station shuddered violently. The lights flickered, and an alarm blared through the bar. "Attention all personnel," a robotic voice announced. "Security breach detected in Sector 7. This is not a drill." Aaliyah's eyes widened. "They know I'm here," she said, grabbing Logan's arm. "We need to move. Now." Into the shadows. Logan followed Aaliyah as she led him through the bar, dodging frozen patrons and patrolling security drones. They reached a maintenance hatch hidden behind a stack of crates. Aaliyah pried it open, revealing a dark, narrow tunnel. "Where does this lead?" Logan asked, his voice tense. "To the biocontainment zone," Aaliyah replied. "It's the heart of OmniCorp's operations. If we're going to stop them, that's where we need to go." Logan hesitated, his instinct screaming at him to turn back. But something in Aaliyah's eyes, a mix of determination and desperation, made him stay. "All right," he said, climbing into the tunnel. "But we do this my way. No more secrets." Aaliyah nodded, her expression serious. "Agreed." As they crawled through the cramped, dusty tunnel, Logan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. But he also knew that this was his chance to make a difference, to fight back against the forces that had taken so much from him. The unknown ahead. The tunnel seemed to stretch on forever, the air growing heavier with each step. Logan's mind raced with questions. Who was Aaliyah, really? What was she hiding? And what horrors awaited them in the biocontainment zone? As they reached the end of the tunnel, Aaliyah turned to him, her eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. "Whatever happens next," she said, "we're in this together." Logan nodded, his resolve hardening. Together, they pushed open the hatch and stepped into the unknown. The door to darkness. The hatch creaked open, revealing a dimly lit corridor that seemed to stretch endlessly into the shadows. The air was thick with an unsettling odor, a mix of chemicals and something organic, almost alive. Logan stepped out first, his blaster drawn, scanning the area for any signs of danger. Aaliyah followed close behind, her glowing eyes darting nervously around. "This place feels wrong," Logan muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's designed to," Aaliyah replied, her tone grim. "OmniCorp doesn't want anyone stumbling into their secrets." The walls of the corridor were lined with strange, pulsating veins that seemed to throb with a faint, rhythmic energy. The floor was slick with an unknown substance, making each step treacherous. Logan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, though he saw no one. The first clues. As they moved deeper into the biocontainment zone, they began to see signs of the experiments conducted here. Glass tanks lined the walls, filled with swirling liquids and grotesque creatures suspended in stasis. Some of the creatures were humanoid, their features twisted and distorted. Others were completely alien, their forms defying logic and reason. Logan stopped in front of one tank, his stomach churning. Inside was a creature that looked like a cross between a human and a reptile, its skin covered in scales and its eyes wide with terror. "What the hell are they doing here?" he asked, his voice filled with disgust. "Genetic engineering," Aaliyah replied, her voice trembling. "Omnicorp is trying to create the perfect weapon, a being that's stronger, faster, and more resilient than anything that exists naturally." Logan turned to her, his eyes narrowing. "And you knew about this?" Aaliyah hesitated, then nodded. "I did. But I didn't realize how far they'd gone. This is beyond anything I imagined. Dr. Eris Thorne." Before Logan could respond, a voice echoed through the corridor. "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" Logan spun around, his blaster raised. Standing before them was a tall, imposing figure in a white lab coat. His face was stern, his piercing blue eyes locked onto Logan's. "I'm Dr. Eris Thorne," the man said, his voice cold and commanding. "And you are trespassing in a restricted area. I suggest you leave immediately." "Not a chance," Logan replied, his finger tightening on the trigger. "We know what you're doing here, and we're not going to let you get away with it." Thorne's eyes narrowed. "You don't understand. This work is necessary. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and we need to evolve if we're going to survive." "By torturing innocent creatures?" Aaliyah shot back, her voice filled with anger. "By playing God?" Thorne sighed, his expression softening. "I don't expect you to understand. But I can't let you interfere. The stakes are too high. A desperate escape." As Thorne spoke, a loud alarm blared through the corridor. The lights flickered, and the disembodied voice announced, "Security breach detected in the biocontainment zone. All units report to their designated stations." "This is not a drill." Thorne's eyes widened in alarm. "They're coming," he said, his voice urgent. "You need to get out of here." Logan hesitated, his blaster still trained on Thorne. "Why are you helping us?" "Because I realized something," Thorne replied, his voice filled with regret. "I'm not trying to save the galaxy. I'm trying to save myself. Now go, before it's too late." With that, Thorne pressed a button on a small device, and a force field shimmered into existence, sealing off the corridor behind them. Logan and Aaliyah exchanged a glance, then turned and ran, their hearts pounding with fear and adrenaline. The truth revealed. As they fled through the maze of corridors, Aaliyah pulled Logan aside. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, her voice trembling. "What is it?" Logan asked, his brow furrowed. "I wasn't always against Omnicorp," Aaliyah confessed. "I used to be one of them." Logan stared at her in shock. "What do you mean?" "I was raised in a privileged society that was complicit in Omnicorp's activities," Aaliyah explained. "My family profited from their exploitation of other species. I didn't realize what was happening until it was too late." Logan's mind raced as he processed her words. He felt betrayed, deceived. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" he demanded. "I was afraid," Aaliyah replied, her eyes filled with remorse. "I was afraid that you wouldn't trust me. But I want to make amends. I want to help these people. I want to bring Omnicorp down." Logan sighed, his expression softening. "All right," he said. "But you need to prove it to me. You need to show me that you're truly on our side." Aaliyah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I will. I promise." The rebellion begins. As they continued through the corridors, they encountered a group of escaped test subjects, beings of various species, their faces etched with fear and exhaustion. Among them was a tall, slender alien with iridescent skin and luminous eyes, a hulking armored being with incredible strength, and a nimble insectoid creature with razor-sharp claws. "Who are you?" the tall alien asked, his voice trembling. "We're friends," Logan replied. "We're here to help you escape." The group exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from suspicion to hope. "What do we do?" the tall alien asked. "We fight," Logan said, his voice filled with determination. "We fight for our freedom. We fight for our lives." Aaliyah stepped forward, her eyes glowing with an intense light. "We have something that Omnicorp doesn't," she said. "A reason to fight." With that, the group rallied together, their spirits lifted by the promise of freedom. They were no longer just prisoners, they were rebels, ready to take on Omnicorp and expose their crimes to the galaxy. The plan. Logan gathered the rebels around him, outlining their plan. "We'll split into teams," he said. "Aaliyah, you take the telepath and the insectoid creature and flank the main entrance. I'll take the armored being and the rest of the rebels and charge straight ahead. We'll create a diversion and draw their fire." The rebels nodded, their faces filled with determination. They were ready to fight, ready to risk everything for their freedom. As they prepared for the assault, Logan couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had something that Omnicorp couldn't take away, their will to survive. The battle ahead. The rebels moved swiftly and silently through the corridors, their movements coordinated and precise. As they approached the central control hub, they encountered heavy resistance, security guards armed with energy weapons, their faces grim and determined. Logan raised his blaster, his heart pounding with adrenaline. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with determination. "Let's show them what happens when you mess with the wrong species." With that, the rebels charged into battle, their weapons blazing. The fight was fierce, the air filled with the sounds of gunfire and explosions. But the rebels fought with a ferocity born of desperation, their desire for freedom fueling their every move. As the battle raged on, Logan couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. They were fighting for something greater than themselves, for justice, for freedom, for the future of the galaxy. And they were not going to back down. The charge into chaos. The central control hub was a sprawling labyrinth of consoles, monitors, and holographic displays, all buzzing with activity. Omnicorp security forces were entrenched, their energy weapons trained on the rebels as they stormed the room. Logan led the charge, his blaster firing in precise bursts, while the hulking armored being smashed through barricades with brute force. Aaliyah and her team flanked the guards, using their unique abilities to disrupt the enemy's defenses. The telepath among them, a slender being with a translucent, glowing head, projected waves of confusion into the minds of the guards, causing them to falter and miss their shots. The insectoid creature darted through the shadows, its razor-sharp claws slicing through armor and weapons with terrifying efficiency. "Keep pushing," Logan shouted over the din of battle. "We need to reach the main console." Aaliyah's revelation. As the rebels fought their way deeper into the hub, Aaliyah pulled Logan aside, her expression serious. "There's something you need to know," she said, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "Now's not the time, Aaliyah." Logan snapped, firing at a guard who had taken cover behind a console. "It's about Omnicorp's ultimate plan," she insisted. "They're not just creating weapons. They're trying to merge organic and synthetic life, to create a new species that's completely under their control." Logan's eyes widened. "What?" Why? To dominate the galaxy, Aliyah replied. They want to eliminate free will, to create a universe where everyone obeys their commands without question. Logan's jaw tightened. Then we're not just fighting for our freedom. We're fighting for the future of every living being in the galaxy. The commander's arrival. Before they could continue, a cold, commanding voice cut through the noise. Enough. Logan turned to see a tall, imposing figure striding into the room. She wore a sleek black uniform adorned with the insignia of Omni Corp, her cybernetic eye glowing with a cold, calculating light. This was Commander Vera, the ruthless leader of the station's security forces. You've caused quite a mess, Vera said, her voice dripping with disdain. But your little rebellion ends here. Logan stepped forward, his blaster trained on her. We're not afraid of you, he said, his voice steady. And we're not going to stop until Omni Corp's crimes are exposed. Vera smirked. Brave words. But bravery won't save you. With a wave of her hand, a squad of heavily armed guards emerged from the shadows, their weapons aimed at the rebels. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. A desperate gamble. Logan glanced at Aliyah, his mind racing. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but he wasn't about to give up. Aliyah, can you disable their weapons? He whispered. She nodded, her eyes glowing with determination. I'll try. As the guards advanced, Aliyah raised her hands, a surge of energy erupting from her palms. The energy struck the guards' weapons, causing them to short-circuit and fall to the ground. Now! Logan shouted, charging at the guards with the armored being at his side. The rebels followed, their weapons blazing. The battle rages on. The fight was brutal and chaotic. Logan found himself face-to-face with Commander Vera, their weapons locked in a deadly duel. Vera was fast and skilled, her cybernetic enhancements giving her an edge. But Logan was fueled by something stronger, his determination to protect the innocent and bring down Omni Corporation. You're fighting a losing battle, Vera sneered, deflecting Logan's blaster shots with her energy shield. Maybe, Logan replied, his voice calm. But I'd rather die fighting for what's right than live serving a corrupt empire. With a sudden burst of speed, Logan disarmed Vera, sending her weapon clattering to the ground. She lunged at him, but he sidestepped and delivered a powerful blow to her chest, sending her sprawling. The turning point. As Vera struggled to her feet, Aliyah appeared beside Logan, her eyes glowing with an intense light. It's over, Vera, she said. Your reign of terror ends here. Vera laughed, a cold, hollow sound. You think you've won? Omni Corp is everywhere. You can't stop us. Maybe not, Logan said, his voice filled with determination. But we're going to try. With that, Aliyah unleashed a final surge of energy, striking Vera and sending her crashing to the ground. The commander lay motionless, her cybernetic eye flickering before going dark. The aftermath. The rebels cheered, their voices filled with triumph. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. Logan turned to Aliyah, his expression serious. We need to disable the station's systems and broadcast Omni Corp's crimes to the galaxy. Aliyah nodded. I know how to do it. There's a terminal in the central control room that can override the station's security protocols. The final push. The rebels made their way to the central control room, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Aliyah sat down at the terminal, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she worked. Suddenly, the main view screen flickered to life, displaying a holographic image of the station. But something was wrong, the image was distorted, as if something was interfering with the signal. What's going on? Logan asked, his voice filled with alarm. I don't know, Aliyah replied, her brow furrowed. Something's blocking the signal. I can't get through. The architects of destiny. Before they could react, the screen changed, displaying a group of shadowy figures seated in a darkened room. One of them leaned forward, his face hidden in shadow. "Hello, rebels," he said, his voice smooth and menacing. "We've been expecting you." Logan's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "We are the architects of your destiny," the figure replied. "We are the ones who control Omni Corporation. And we are not pleased with your little rebellion." Aliyah stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "You can't stop us. We're going to expose your crimes to the galaxy." The figure chuckled. "You think you can hurt us? You're nothing but pawns in our game. We created this station. We created you. And we can destroy you just as easily." A dire warning. The screen went blank, and the station began to shake violently. The lights flickered, and the alarm klaxons blared with renewed ferocity. "What's happening?" Aliyah asked, her voice filled with panic. "They're activating the self-destruct sequence," Logan replied, his heart sinking. "We need to get out of here. Now." The escape. The rebels raced through the station, their hearts pounding with dread. The walls cracked and collapsed around them, the air filled with the sounds of explosions and alarms. As they reached the escape pods, they found that most of them were damaged or destroyed. Only one pod remained operational. "There's only room for a few of us," Logan said, his voice filled with despair. "No," Aliyah replied, her voice firm. "We're not leaving anyone behind. We'll all fit. We have to." The rebels crammed themselves into the pod, squeezing together as tightly as possible. Logan sealed the door and activated the launch sequence. As the pod shot out of the station, they looked back and saw the station explode in a blinding flash of light. They had escaped, but the fight was far from over. A new beginning. As they drifted through space, Logan turned to Aliyah, his expression filled with determination. "What do we do now?" she asked. "We keep fighting," Logan replied. "We find the other rebels. We gather our allies. And we bring Omni Corp to justice." Aliyah nodded, her eyes filled with hope. "Together," she said. "Together," Logan agreed. And so, the rebels set off on their new adventure, determined to bring down Omni Corp and create a better future for the galaxy. The aftermath of destruction. The escape pod hurtled through the void of space, its occupants crammed together in tense silence. Behind them, the remnants of the Omni Corp station burned brightly, a fiery testament to their rebellion. Logan stared out the small viewport, his mind racing. They had escaped, but at what cost? The station was gone, and with it, countless lives. Yet, they had struck a blow against Omni Corp, a blow that would echo across the galaxy. Aliyah sat beside him, her glowing eyes fixed on the distant stars. "We did it," she said softly, her voice tinged with both relief and sorrow. "We exposed their crimes. But this is only the beginning." Logan nodded, his jaw tightening. "Omni Corp won't stop. They'll come after us. We need to regroup, find allies, and prepare for what's next." A new threat emerges. As the pod drifted toward a nearby planet, the rebels began to discuss their next steps. The tall, iridescent alien, who introduced himself as Kale, spoke up. "There's a resistance network on the planet below. They've been fighting Omni Corp for years. If anyone can help us, it's them." Logan considered this. "Do you trust them?" Kale hesitated. "As much as we can trust anyone. But we don't have many options." Aliyah placed a hand on Logan's arm. "We need allies, Logan. We can't do this alone." Reluctantly, Logan agreed. "All right. Let's make contact." The Resistance Base. The pod landed on the planet's surface, a barren wasteland dotted with ruins and scorched earth. The rebels were met by a group of armed fighters, their faces hardened by years of war. Their leader, a grizzled human named Captain Yarrick, stepped forward, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the newcomers. "Who are you, and what do you want?" Yarrick demanded, his hand resting on the hilt of his energy blade. "We're rebels," Logan replied, stepping forward. "We just destroyed an Omni-Corp station. We're here to join your fight." Yarrick's expression softened slightly. "You're the ones who took down the station. We heard the broadcast. You've got guts, I'll give you that." Aaliyah stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly. "We need your help. Omni-Corp is planning something big, something that could change the galaxy forever. We have to stop them." Yarrick studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right. Come with us. We'll talk." The plan unveiled. The rebels were led to an underground base, a sprawling network of tunnels and chambers hidden beneath the planet's surface. As they walked, Logan couldn't help but notice the determination in the faces of the Resistance fighters. These were people who had lost everything to Omni-Corp, and they were ready to fight to the bitter end. In the war room, Yarrick laid out a holographic map of the galaxy, highlighting key Omni-Corp installations. "We've been gathering intelligence for years," he explained. "Omni-Corp's main research facility is here, on the planet Xerxes. If we can destroy it, we'll cripple their operations." Logan studied the map, his mind racing. "What's the catch?" Yarrick sighed. "The facility is heavily guarded. It's surrounded by a fleet of warships and protected by an impenetrable shield. Getting inside won't be easy." Aaliyah stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with determination. "We've faced worse. If we work together, we can do this." The assault on Xerxes. The rebels spent days preparing for the assault, gathering supplies and devising a plan. Aaliyah used her knowledge of Omni-Corp's systems to identify weaknesses in the facility's defenses, while Logan trained the fighters in combat tactics. Finally, the day of the attack arrived. The rebels boarded a stolen Omni-Corp transport ship, their hearts pounding with anticipation. As they approached Xerxes, the facility came into view, a massive, ominous structure surrounded by a fleet of warships. "This is it," Logan said, his voice steady. "Stay focused. We've got one shot at this." The ship descended through the planet's atmosphere, dodging enemy fire as it approached the facility. Aaliyah worked furiously at the controls, disabling the shield long enough for the ship to land. The battle within. The rebels stormed the facility, their weapons blazing. Omni-Corp's forces were ready, their heavily armed guards meeting the rebels with brutal efficiency. The battle was fierce, the air filled with the sounds of gunfire and explosions. Logan led the charge, his blaster firing in precise bursts. Aaliyah fought beside him, her energy abilities wreaking havoc on the enemy's defenses. Kale and the other rebels followed close behind, their determination unwavering. As they fought their way deeper into the facility, they encountered increasingly bizarre and terrifying experiments, genetically engineered creatures, cybernetic soldiers, and even beings that seemed to be a fusion of organic and synthetic life. The final confrontation. At the heart of the facility, they found the control room, a massive chamber filled with monitors and consoles. Standing in the center was a figure clad in a black robe, his face obscured by a hood. "You've come far," the figure said, his voice cold and menacing. "But you cannot stop what has already begun." Logan stepped forward, his blaster trained on the figure. "Who are you?" The figure lowered his hood, revealing a face that was both human and alien, his features twisted and distorted. "I am the architect," he said. "The one who will usher in a new era of order and control." Aaliyah's eyes widened in recognition. "You're the one behind Omni-Corp's experiments. You're the one who's been manipulating everything." The architect smiled, a cold, cruel smile. "Indeed. And now, you will witness the culmination of my work." With a wave of his hand, the monitors flickered to life, displaying images of planets across the galaxy, planets that were being consumed by a strange, black substance. "What is that?" Logan demanded, his voice filled with horror. "The singularity," the architect replied. "A self-replicating nanovirus that will assimilate all organic life into a single, unified consciousness. A consciousness that I will control." A desperate gamble. Logan's mind raced. They had to stop the architect, but how? The facility was rigged to self-destruct, and the singularity was spreading rapidly. Aaliyah stepped forward, her eyes glowing with an intense light. "I can disrupt the architect's control," she said. "But I'll need time." Logan nodded. "We'll hold them off. Do what you need to do." As Aaliyah worked at the console, Logan and the rebels fought desperately to hold back the architect's forces. The battle was brutal, the air filled with the sounds of gunfire and screams. The sacrifice. Finally, Aaliyah cried out, her body glowing with a blinding light. "It's done," she shouted. "The singularity's control has been disrupted." The architect roared in fury, his form dissolving into a swirling mass of energy. "You think you've won?" he screamed. "This is only the beginning." With a final, deafening explosion, the facility began to collapse. Logan grabbed Aaliyah's hand, pulling her toward the exit. "We need to go," he shouted. But Aaliyah hesitated, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I can't," she said. "The disruption is unstable. If I leave, the architect will regain control." Logan's heart sank. "No. There has to be another way." Aaliyah smiled, her eyes filled with love and determination. "This is the only way. Go, Logan. Finish what we started." With that, she pushed him toward the exit, her body dissolving into a brilliant light that filled the chamber. The aftermath. Logan and the rebels barely made it out of the facility before it exploded, the shockwave sending their ship hurtling through space. As they looked back, they saw the planet consumed by a brilliant light, the singularity's spread halted. The rebels were silent, their hearts heavy with loss. They had won, but the cost had been great. Logan stared out the viewport, his eyes filled with tears. "We'll honor her sacrifice," he said, his voice filled with determination. "We'll keep fighting. For her. For all of us." And so, the rebels set off into the stars, their resolve stronger than ever. The battle for freedom was far from over, but they knew one thing for certain: they would never stop fighting.